Government corruption has never been more prevalent or caused more harm. It's why extremism is on the rise. It's why the financial gap between the haves and have-nots has never been wider. And it's why our planet is at risk of an extinction level tragedy. That's why I need your help to keep exposing the truth about the rot on both sides of the aisle. Become a supporter or a friend of the show today by clicking on the coffee link in the description box below. Friends of the show join me on a Zoom hangout once a month, and you guys can ask me any questions you want, and I can get to know you better. But the most important reason to help is to keep the show alive. Together, we can and will save our country and our planet. Thanks in advance and enjoy the show. Everyone, welcome to the show. I have an update to share about one of Trump's Capitol insurrectionists. It's time for an episode of Where Are They Now?
Matthew Bledsoe was arrested.
Patrick Montgomery was in court.
Jonathan Manapa will stay in federal custody.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
So 56-year-old D.C. resident Mark Ponder was seen at the Capitol violently attacking officers on January 6th. Open source and body cam video footage shows Ponder running toward a line of officers with some sort of long pole, and he attempted to strike one of the officers. So the officer raised a shield to protect himself. That's when the pole struck the shield and broke, and then Ponder retreated back to the mob. And Ponder hit the shield so hard that it actually cracked the officer's shield. He was then later seen with another long pole, which was thicker than the first one. And once again, he ran toward a line of officers. He attempted to strike one of them. Luckily, that second officer also had a shield, and he used it to block the pole. Ponder then moved up to the Upper West Terrace area, and he was, in a very menacing manner, continuously pounding the pole on the ground as others in the mob were confronting and attacking officers. And then an open source video captured this moment. And the FBI said that you could hear a voice saying, quote, "You gonna have to kill me today. You gonna have to kill me." Although they did admit that it wasn't clear if that was Ponder's voice or some other member of the mob. But, you know, it proves that this was the mood of the mob that day, and this is what police were up against. So the officers started to release pepper spray into the crowd, and Ponder was then seen running toward them, and he was swinging and striking at the officers with the pole. This time, though, Ponder actually did connect with an officer, and he hit him in the shoulder. So that's when numerous officers tackled Ponder to the ground, and then they arrested him. However, Ponder refused to give the officers his name, and he said, quote, "You'll find out when I get locked up." And then as they were walking him away from the crowd, he was yelling back to the mob, quote, "Hold the line and don't give up." And as the officers were waiting with Ponder, he was talking with another one of Trump's insurrectionists. And he said to this person, quote, "I will say this, when our country is being attacked with, like we are, we have a right to fight. That is what the Second Amendment was built upon." However, because of the crowd and the chaos, a transport vehicle couldn't actually reach the Capitol. So Ponder had to be released after the officers confirmed his name and his date of birth. You know, they pulled his ID out of his pocket. But before Ponder walked away from them, he told the officers, quote, "You know deep in your heart, you know that your fathers, your grandfathers, they fought for this freedom in which people are giving away. The thing is, at some point, you are going to have to choose and make up your mind what side you are going to take. That's what we're fighting for, because they are stealing that right, and it's blatant. Everybody can see it." Then the officers escorted Ponder out of the barricaded area, and they told him that he wasn't allowed to return. However, he did. Approximately 2 hours after they released him, Ponder was then captured on body cam footage again, and this time he was on the inauguration stage. And then he only left when they deployed tear gas into the crowd. So Ponder was officially arrested on March 17th of last year. He was hit with a superseding indictment after the initial charges. And so he was charged with assaulting officers using a dangerous weapon, civil disorder, obstructing an official proceeding, entering restricted grounds with a deadly or dangerous weapon, 2 counts of disorderly conduct, one of which also included additional penalties for the deadly or dangerous weapon, and 2 counts of physical violence. One of those also included an increased penalty for the use of a deadly or dangerous weapon. In April, Ponder pleaded guilty to the charge of assaulting officers, and he was looking at up to 20 years in prison, up to 3 years of probation, and $250,000 in fines. However, the prosecutor was only asking for 5 years in prison and then probation time because it more aligned with the federal sentencing guidelines. And you guys are going to be shocked to hear Ponder is a former crack addict and he has a serious criminal history. According to the prosecutor, Ponder has an extensive history dating back to the 80s, and it includes convictions for domestic assault. And in 2008, he was convicted for armed robbery and bank robbery. So this is who is at the Capitol supporting Trump. This guy is running his mouth, too, about something being stolen from him and Trump supporters. Again, with the irony. So anyway, Ponder's attorney argued for leniency. They said, oh, because of his age. I mean, he's 55, not 75 or 56. And they said because of his childhood was, quote, as severe as any I've seen in my years practicing criminal law. At his sentencing hearing, Ponder told the judge he just got, quote, caught up in the melee. And he said, quote, I never meant for this to happen. I went there with the intention of going on a peaceful protest. Then he went on to explain, quote, I'm not saying I'm completely innocent of this. I am not. I'm extremely sorry for what happened to this officer and all the other officers that day. And Ponder told the judge, quote, I'm not asking for justice, Your Honor, because if you gave me justice, I deserve everything I'd get. I'm asking for mercy. So Officer Aquilina Gonell was there. You've probably seen him before at the January 6 hearings. His shield is the one that Ponder cracked. And he told the judge, quote, please do not fall for his plea because that day he didn't care. He didn't care about COVID. He didn't care about officers. He didn't care about anything. Now, unfortunately for Ponder, he got the toughest January 6 judge. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan presided over his case, and she said, quote, he wasn't defending himself or anybody else. He was attempting to injure those officers, and we are lucky that Sergeant Gonell or someone like him was not killed because of the force he was swinging with. Chutkan continued her beat down by saying that Ponder was, quote, part of a group who, when they couldn't get what they wanted, decided they were going to take it, and they were going to take it with violence. She also said Ponder felt entitled, quote, to attack law enforcement officers who were just doing their jobs. And Judge Chutkan said that while Ponder's upbringing was horrific, she didn't believe it justified a downward departure from the federal sentencing guidelines, which is what his attorney was asking for. In fact, she said, quote, I don't know that I've ever varied up in a criminal case, but I have to tell you, I seriously considered it. So appalled was I by his actions, and so moved was I by Sergeant Gonell and others. With that, Judge Chutkan sentenced Ponder to 63 months in prison, 3 years of probation, and $2,000 in restitution. She also ordered him to take part in mental health treatment while he was behind bars. This is more like it. And, can you imagine what his family thinks? You've got a Black man here who not only supports a complete bigot like Trump, and you got people walking around with him waving their bigoted loser Confederate flags that literally fought to keep slavery as a right in this country. But he's losing 5 years of his life for a man who probably wouldn't piss on the best part of him if he was on fire. Yeah. Was it worth it? Anyway, guys, when and if I hear more, I'll let you know. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Take care. I'll talk with you soon.